Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Tuesday, January the 6th, 2026, and today we are talking about what to consider with soil mixes, soil blocking tips to keep them from drying out and also being really expensive and time consuming, and also flame weeding with an exclamation point. Why not? So let's do it. All right, everyone, welcome to Tilth Tuesday. Every Tuesday this year will be brought to you by our friends at Tilth Soil. If you're looking for compost or propagation mix, check out tilthsoil.com. Link will be in the show notes. I hope everyone is doing well this Tuesday. The weather here is unseasonably warm, which I am perfectly fine with. No need to change anything there. I had a nice long day of work yesterday for that fact, and I love that feeling. I'm prepping some beds in the tunnel and taking the new tilter from Johnny's for a test spin, the one that I mentioned on the live the other day. More on that later, though, that particular tool. But I also got a couple of rows of carrots sown in the tunnel on each of the edges where I'm planning to plant cucumbers this spring. Today, I may even finally be starting some onions while spreading some leaves and planting those lettuce starts. Is going to be another busy day. Also need to start more lettuce. So yeah, I got some things going on, and soon peppers. Yeah, just so many things going on all of a sudden because I know it will get cold, probably snow again. Striking while the iron is at least mildly warm, as it were. Anyway, so today, appropriately for Tilth Tuesday, I thought I would talk a bit about soil mixes. We're coming up on a seed starting time, obviously, so I thought it wouldn't hurt for us to just explore this idea of what makes a good soil mix. Plus, if it's worth making your own and what you should think about when buying soil mixes. First, it's important to point out that soil mix is really critical for good plant production. It is not only what is going to get the transplants to germinate, but what those transplants are going to grow inside of for potentially several weeks or even months, depending on the crop and your situation. A poor box store soil mix can result in poor box store quality plants. So it is really important to think about it. Now, that can mean slow and dead plants, that can mean disease, that can mean stunted growth or low germination, so it really does matter. Now, for years, we were making our own soil mix, which was a decent winter project, but cost a lot of time and money and energy. Now, on a small scale, like a backyard or micro farm, it's doable to do that, and it's even possible to do well. But on our scale, when we're starting tens of thousands of seeds every year with soil blocks, which use more soil mix than cell trays, and we don't have a tractor to help us mix stuff, doing our own soil mix just wasn't quite worth it. The main problem we ran into is simply quality. The mix was inconsistent because the mixing of my ingredients was inconsistent. It's hard to do with a shovel, and it was just not as good as what other mixes produced when I tried them, even when I added things like vermicompost and other high quality ingredients to boost it. Now, my mix was roughly 3 parts peat moss, store-bought, but we'll get back to that. 1 part soil, 2 parts compost, 2 parts sand or perlite, and then some blood meal, fish meal, green sand, rock phosphate, those sorts of things. The perlite sand was for the aeration element, the soil and compost for microbes, nutrients, and water retention, the vermicompost, because why the heck not vermicompost, and the peat was also for moisture, and with the rock amendments for the nutrients. Now, what I came to learn is that the peat was a big part of the problem. The peat that we have access to in box stores, as I've talked about before, is the dregs of the peat industry. It's not like the high-grade peat moss that you get from when you buy a good soil mix. And what it often leads to is poor aeration because it's just really small and it holds a lot of moisture. Setting all of the general environmental issues with peat aside for this conversation, the dregs of the peat industry just means that the soil blocks stayed extra soggy. Now, could I have upped the aeration element or found better peat? Perhaps, but when I broke down the numbers with labor involved, I really wasn't saving much money creating my own soil mix. And after I started using the professionally made mixes, the quality was so much better and more consistent. At that point, I just kind of gave up on making my own. So again, it can be done, but whether or not it should be done is probably more of a math problem and just a quality problem. You look at how well the plants do, and if they do well, then you can continue. And if they don't do as well as maybe a mix from a professional producer, then, reconsider. So how would you find the right mix for you if you are planning to buy one? Well, first, try a few that are available relatively locally to you, compare them, do a few trays of a few crops, and just see which ones do better for you and your system. You may find you like one over another for the crops that you grow or the cell trays or soil blocks or whatever that you use. I like using relatively local mixes too because I like to think that they are going to incorporate local microbiology via their compost, which contains microbes somewhat more suited to my climate. That is entirely conjecture. That's not research necessarily, and because sense does not make science, but you also could just say that not shipping soil mix across the country is better environmentally. So there's that as well. Both of those things are a bonus to me. I also like to know that my soil mix producer is environmentally conscious, so I may talk to them, I may call them, read about their work, see what drives them, listen to podcasts that they've done or been on. I want nerds making my soil mix. I feel like that's a decent philosophy. And it's important to me because it means they care and they are going to continuously strive to get better. Many will happily send you a sample too, which you can start there and see how you like that and then try a couple others. Or like I said, just buy a small bag and compare it to one or two other mixes in the area and see which makes the most sense. Price obviously may matter as well, but if you connect with one of the producers more than another, then the added price may be worth it, even if it's a little bit more expensive. Anyway, those are my thoughts and just my thoughts. So I look forward to you all chiming in and giving your own thoughts on soil mixes. Do you make your own? I remember last year that my buddy Paul from Mountain Roots Farm sent me a cool video where he had done a really effective homemade mix using just composted chicken manure and screened aged composted wood chips. So it's possible there are a million options out there as well for how these mixes can get made. And in fact, if you want to send us a 20-second farm video about how you make your mix, you're welcome to. Send that to farmermike@notillgrowers.com. I love to hear what you all have found or do. Let us know. And otherwise, we're going to take a quick break to pay the bills. And when we return, Soil Block-a-Palooza, that could actually be a thing. Probably shouldn't be, but it could be. BRB. Today's episode is brought to you by Johnny's Selected Seeds. Johnny's Selected Seeds is a proud supporter of Growers Daily. At Johnny's, they do more than sell seeds. They grow them. They trial them to see how they perform on Johnny's research farm in Maine and across the U.S. and Canada. Only the best varieties are added to their catalog and website. When you need proven varieties you can count on and detailed guidance from seedling to harvest, consider Johnny's your trusted growing partner. JohnnySeeds.com. That's JohnnySeeds.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Ohio Earth Food. So you got your soil tested or need your soil tested, it's time to contact Ohio Earth Food. Since 1972, they have been growers' trusted source for organic soil amendments to apply before you plant to prevent those deficiency symptoms that limit production. Their knowledgeable staff have all been a part of certified organic operations and can help you choose the best products for your soil and deliver or ship them right to your farm. With locations in Northwest Ohio and just north of Madison, Wisconsin, Ohio Earth Food wants to be your partner for organic inputs. Don't count on luck this year. Start your seeds in the Seed Catapult potting soil and put their Revita fertilizers in your beds, and rest assured that your plants will have all the nutrients, stimulants, and energy for whatever comes their way. Feed your soil and let your soil feed the plants. Visit them at ohioearthfood.com. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere the questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Amy Peary, who writes, quote, "This feels basic and dumb, but I just haven't gotten the hang of starting seeds with soil blocking. I use Coast of Maine soil and have tried warming mats with or without humidity domes. I start them in our basement, which is around 60 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit, and have grow lights over them. It seems they either dry out really quickly or I end up with damping off. I've tried both bottom watering and overhead watering. If you've already covered this topic, feel free to disregard, and thanks either way for your time." End quote. All right, Amy, no silly or dumb questions here. Don't ever hesitate to just ask away. Even questions that I've answered before, I can always answer them in a new way or offer new insight. It's kind of the joy of the show. Judgment-free zone here also. And soil blocking is nuanced, so there are lots of questions to be had. And if you don't have success with it right away, you're not alone. All right, so there are a few pieces to this question, starting with the one about the drying out. Drying out is one nuance to soil blocking that can be a bit of a learning curve for sure. Depending on the trays that you use, that the soil blocks are kept in, if they have, tall sides or no sides at all, they will dry out faster or slower depending on those trays. We use trays with the slightly taller sides that kind of go up over the block, most of the time at least, and that does help a bit to preserve the moisture by keeping the sides from being overly exposed. Watering frequency also matters a ton with soil blocking. For us, we water a lot when it's warm, about like once per hour during the bulk of the day. This can be automated, of course, but it does require a lot of attention to make sure that it's done and done well. You can also, and we do for certain crops at certain times of the year, bottom water. For you, although I know you said you tried it, bottom watering is almost certainly going to be the best approach, because if you are also dealing with damping off, Part of that has to deal with the leaves being too wet for too long a time. Successful bottom watering can be done with bottom watering trays or some sort of bottom watering structure like a table with a plastic bottom. Check the blocks with your hands often too to make sure that they are moist but not soggy. You can also automate the refilling of the trays with an irrigation timer. So that's, it's an option for bottom watering or overhead watering. The other side of that though, and maybe this is more helpful to your specific situation, is ventilation and air movement. You need to make sure, especially when growing indoors, that there is adequate air movement or disease is going to always be a challenge. Plants need to be moved around a bit for good photosynthesis, but they need to physically shake a little bit, but also from air movement that helps to keep the spores from taking root and ruining your starts. Sanitation is also important in indoor scenarios. It's important always, but in outdoor scenarios, the sun and air movement does a lot of that work for you, the sanitation work. Indoors, you have less natural sanitation, like from the sun or from the wind drying stuff out. So trays and areas need to be regularly cleaned with isopropyl alcohol or whatever your sanitizer of choice may be. The air temperature may also be a little bit low, so I might use the heat mat, the grow lights, and not necessarily the humidity domes to allow for ventilation and to adequately cover that warmth issue. Now, I will say I do not grow stuff indoors because I don't really need to, but I also don't love the finickiness of it. It becomes a lot more technical, but it can be done. Just focus on those little things like ventilation, temperature, and keeping the leaves dry, and you should have success. Also, look to hydroponic and indoor growers to see what they're using in terms of equipment. There is a lot more wiggle room in greenhouse and outdoor production than indoor, which has to be much more precise because you are essentially doing all the work nature, does on its own. You're essentially doing all that work. So anyway, not sure if anything in there was super helpful, but I hope so, and wishing you the best of luck this season. We will probably talk more about soil blocks as time goes on. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, flame weeding. Be right back. That time I didn't say exclamation point, but it was there. Just feels right. Today's episode is brought to you by High Mowing Organic Seeds. High Mowing Organic Seeds is celebrating their 30th anniversary with 47 fabulous new varieties for 2026. Highlights include downy mildew-resistant cucumbers, a poppy that looks like cotton candy, and 12 new tomato varieties. High Mowing offers more than 750 varieties of certified organic, non-GMO vegetables, flowers, herbs, and cover crops, all trialed for optimal performance in organic growing systems. High Mowing has the professional quality seeds and supportive grower reps to get you from seed to harvest. Visit highmowingseeds.com to request a catalog and use code 26NOTILL, all one word, 26NOTILL, for 10% off your order of $100 or more. That's highmowingseeds.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by FarmRaise. Still struggling with your balance sheet? Your lender's asking for a balance sheet and you're stuck with a spreadsheet mess or guessing your numbers? FarmRaise Tracks takes the stress out of farm finance. With one click, you can generate an accurate, up-to-date balance sheet that shows your assets, liabilities, and equity. No accounting degree required. You'll be ready for loan applications, tax season, or just a clearer picture of where your farm stands. Join thousands of farmers using Tracks to build stronger businesses. Get 20% off with code NOTILL20 at farmraise.com for the lifetime of your membership. All right, back to the show. Okay, so Mondays get a crop focus. That's kind of the new thing we're doing for the new year. And I didn't want to leave Tuesdays without their own focus. So I think I will try on Tuesdays to do at least one tool focus for as long as I can, because tools are tricky. The allure of a new tool is that it's going to solve problems, to pay for itself, and sometimes it does, and then sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it does so, and then some. Other times, the tool is just another thing to maintain and keep track of, and doesn't get nearly the amount of use you'd hoped for, or it simply does not do the job as well as you'd hoped. I think flame weeding is definitely a tool with that level of polarity. It can be a really good tool, or it can be a really useless one. A lot of that depends on how you use it, so let's break it down how to use it well. The Flameweeder is a tool that uses a flame, run on propane, to burn germinating weeds. Flameweeders come in many different shapes and sizes, from the handheld single-take versions that look somewhat like a mini blowtorch, to the backpack-size ones that look like legit blowtorches. Some of them can be rolled along the ground, and some of them are carried and just used as needed. Oftentimes, especially with those on wheels, they have a shield around them to help trap that heat weed in as they roar over a section of soil and germinating weed seeds. We own the flameweeders.com 5-torch 2-wheel model that we bought like 10 or so years ago now. They also have a slightly cheaper single-wheeled model, which I'm told is a little bit harder to control for the balancing. Like the 2 wheels is nice because it stays even. Single wheel, you kind of have to do that with your wrist. And since there have been years that I used it a fair bit and years where I did not use it practically at all. The reason for this is largely mulch. In the years when I've had a good layer of compost mulch down, the Flameweeder was all but obsolete. The compost mulch did the weeding. The years that I did not have a thick layer of compost mulch or slowly broke down or whatever, the Flameweeder was, for all intents and purposes, a lifesaver. But not for every crop, every weed, or every situation. What Flameweeders generally excel at and are frankly intended for is burning the buds of freshly germinated seed. So an example of how it works well is you prep a bed for carrots, sow the carrots, then put some beet seeds at the head of the bed, just a handful. When the beet seeds germinate, usually about 2 days before the carrots, depending on the time of year, that's when you flameweed the bed and kill all the freshly germinated little sprouts of whatever weed might be there that wants to compete with your carrots. Then the carrots come up into a fresh, perfectly clean bed. In fact, someone asked the other day if flame weeding could be a treatment for jumping worms, and not if they are below the surface. The flame weeding is very surface level, and the heat will only penetrate the soil, which itself is an excellent insulator, if the flame weeder is kept there for several seconds and run on high. And even then, it's probably not going to go that deep, really, which is why the weeds that germinated die, but the carrot seeds that are below them do not. So maybe if you did the mustard douse first for the jumping worms and then flame weeding, that could work to kill a bunch of those jumping worms. But I don't know that for sure. I guess you just have to try it. The fact that the heat is so surface level is why flame weeding also won't work on perennials, though. I had a friend try to use it on an established Johnson grass patch to no avail. Johnson grass that sprouts from seeds, toast. Sprouting from a root, nada. Plants like that will die back, but then they'll just rebound. So as a means of eradicating seed sprouts, the flame weeder can be really effective on most weeds. Anything growing from perennial rhizome or root or whatever, not so much. It also won't do much for established weeds, the flame weeder won't. Like if you've got some chickweed right now that's several inches tall, a normal flame weeding isn't going to do much to kill it. I've tried, for science. Now, the thing about flame weeding is that I always call it the most dangerous thing I do on my farm. Strapping a propane tank to your back or hauling one around and setting stuff afire is not always the safest thing to do. In dry regions, this could easily cause a forest fire and it's not generally advisable as a cultivation practice. I've caused many a bed and pathway fire in our wet region of Kentucky, especially with the amount of organic material we have down. Live hot flames can be an issue. There is no perfect tool, and the flame weeder is no different. It's a great tool in the toolbox in the right conditions, and to me, I somewhat like the little bit of char it leaves on the surface for a little bit of potassium. But of course, again, propane tank, flame, not my favorite thing in terms of safety. So for uses, carrots, beets, and even lettuce and spinach beds works great for those. Most directly seeded crops, it can be helpful, though quick radishes and arugula and that sort of stuff, they probably germinate a little bit too fast for the flame weeding to make a difference. For crops like those or transplanted crops, if you want to use that flame weeder, the flame weeding would come before you plant the crop. In that case, you prep a bed, throw a tarp over it for a few days even to speed up a little bit of extra seed germination, run the flame weeder after, and then you pull the tarp and then plant. It's like a super stale seed bedding. That can speed up the process nicely. So anyway, let me know your thoughts and or experiences with flame weeding. I'd love to hear them, and we can revisit it on Friday, if need be. Otherwise, I think we're done here for this Tilth Tuesday, and we will have a nice treat for you all tomorrow. Don't forget, No Till Growers is now officially a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible. Greatly appreciated. If you want to learn more about how to do that, you can find the details in the show notes. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That is an easy way to help us out. An enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors, and if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, like if you have a small business and you like the work that we do, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and my wife Hannah for the absolutely everything in the world. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear while I drink some tea out of my Savannah, Georgia mug. Don't know why I have that. It does hold good tea, though. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at no-tillcourse.com to support this work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/no-tillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of January, you get a shout in the show. So big shout outs to this week to no new signups yesterday. We were on quite the roll there for a second. I feel like we were getting at least one a day. All good. We will continue our ref story tomorrow if we get some more signups. It seems like I kind of like ref stories. Maybe for a reason. We'll see. Thanks for watching and or listening. We will see you then for a fun treat. Bye.